Oh, hello, and welcome to Al Dente Rigamortis. I'm Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey. E stands for evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories, most creepy and most pasta, and be critically silly doing it. Tonight we have Something Horrible is Happening in Morefolk. So, some time ago, we did Something Awful is Happening in Morefolk by Icydice. And since then, covering that episode, Icydice has released not one, but two more stories, kind of preceding that story. So, yeah, we're going to cover it for the next two weeks. Starting with Something Horrible is Happening in Morefolk. So, if you want to check the story out, you can go to creepypasta.wiki. That's where Icydice has posted the stories. And otherwise, let's start the show with the initial recommendations. I'm going to partially recommend this story.
I am not going to recommend this story.
I, too, am not going to recommend this one.
Interesting.
See if you sway us one way or another.
Yeah, I also wonder if the reason why you guys aren't recommending it is also the reason why I'm only giving it a partial.
That's usually the case.
Yeah.
But let us dive into the rundown, starring The Rock. So actually, now I think about it, like, should whenever we refer to narrator, because we don't have the name for the character, should it just be The Rock?
His name's Jay.
His name is Jay for this story, but I mean for like moving forward, when a character is not named, do we refer to them as The Rock rather than Nair? Just for like the bit.
But I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, that's onto the rundown for Something Horrible is Happening in Morefolk. So we get another email kind of formatted note from concerned anonymous citizen Jay, who is continuing to rant about the police knowing more than they are revealing to the public and covering up the truth behind a gruesome spree of murders happening in the town of Morefolk. This time presenting and critiquing the local newspaper articles that were covering these events. And even revealing near the end that the local journalist who wrote these articles is compromised in this conspiracy, as they are technically the sheriff's son-in-law. By the end, it is also revealed that a child named Dennis Bowers has also gone missing in recent weeks, and that Jay is waiting for an opportune moment to reveal something much bigger. And that the format of these stories will shift in the next one from email sent out to something bigger, maybe. Finn?
Did you mention that at the end?
It is kind of mentioned yeah. He says like next time you hear from me, it'll be in a different format.
Oh, I missed that little bit.
Yep. But yeah, that's the gist of the story. Like, it's a bunch of newspaper articles from the murders that we already covered in the previous story, and Jay is kind of just like looking over, like presenting those, and then critiquing their blatant like propaganda and cover up themes. So I suppose with that we'll move on to everyone tolerates the Grand Inquisitions. At this point, Mikey, the E stands for evil. What do you have?
I have an it sentence.
Ooh. And now an it sentence. Take it away.
It doesn't matter who wrote those articles and what biases they have. Finn.
Wow. That's completely contradictory to the plot of this story. And what the character is trying to get across with this story. And that is why context is important, because that sarcastic sentence could be played straight.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you pull it out of the story and read it on its own, which is what Mikey does often, or every single time actually, when he grabs all the sentences in a story that start with words that they probably shouldn't, like its, ands, or buts, because there's always better word to use.
Indeed. All right, with that, I suppose we move on to the gamer in yellow.
We do. Okay, so reality is, regardless of who witnesses it, at least that's how I read it.
Yeah.
Because like it sounded like there should have been a third part to it. Like it was trying to say reality is, regardless of who witnesses it, the truth.
But it's
But it just stops.
because it's trying to say reality is. Like
Yes.
reality
but
just
it should put
is.
emphasis on it then.
Yeah, like maybe sorry.
Like reality simply is in all
Yes.
caps, comma, regardless of who witnesses it. Or
Yeah.
reality is what it is, regardless of who witnesses it.
Bam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I also would have accepted. Yeah. Well, I also would have accepted reality just is.
Yes.
But that's just basically saying, repeating, like effectively saying the same thing that you were saying. It's like reality simply is. Like, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Or reality justice.
Reality justice. That's the typo.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the typo to our word fix.
Oh yeah. And I just realized I had an extra comment here. It's like reality is what? It's like reality is. What?
What is reality? What is reality? Existential dread. Cosmic horror.
It's life. Wow, so the best.
Yeah. Okay, and that's the end of the grammar in yellow.
Yes.
All right. Then I suppose we'll move on to actual thoughts. Wow, I don't even have to put a timestamp on this one for like when our actual thoughts start. So on to actual thoughts. I'm gonna start with this thing here.
Such is the price of truth in a world run by breaking news and hastily woven narratives. There are always dozens, hundreds, even thousands of hands intricately drawing each needle through each thread, until a net of lies and misrepresentations have been constructed and cast. Cast upon what? You all. The helpless fish adrift at sea, going where the tide takes you. Yet you are not helpless. There is a hand outstretched towards you, and it is my hand. I offer you access to the one thing more valuable than the money or security they try to bribe you with. I offer you access to reality.
Anyone else read this story in a deeply voice modulated anonymous voice? Or is that just me? Like in my head, like when I was reading it, I was reading it like in a world, like that kind of trailer a little bit like trailer voice, but in like when I was reading it in my head, like through in my like theater of the mind, it was like there was a voice modulation, like how like Anonymous usually does, like puts out their statements and such.
Yeah, that's fair.
So yeah, like
he is trying to be anonymous somewhat, anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Like hence why we only know him by Jay, not like
his name's
whatever is
Steve or something.
Yeah. It'd be really bad if it like because he was like mocking the police for like their pathetic attempts at like cybersecurity and such, and like then it turns out like Jay is actually just like the first letter of his actual name, John.
No, his name is Jay. His name is Jay.
Okay, his name is just Jay. I was like, It's like wow, that's actually like wait, that's some
suspected.
that is possibly that could either be the smartest type of tradecraft or the dumbest.
Yeah.
Like hide in plain sight or yeah. Also connective tissues time, guys. So to pull back the curtain here, as of this recording, like literally the day of recording, the US government just had a whistleblower tell the US Congress and the public that aliens exist and the US government has recovered crashed craft and biological remains of dead non-human pilots. And Congress is taking this seriously. Like,
for real?
There is a court meeting, or there was a court meeting not a couple of hours ago that finished with this guy and several other contacts of his that are that were retired from various departments and programs of legitimacy within the U.S. government, putting out a statement in front of U.S. Congress. And like Congress has brought them forth and like with this meeting, this hearing, to evaluate the validity of their claims. We're pretty early into this whole thing. Like, again, the first hearing just ended like a couple of hours ago, and like Twitter and like TikTok and stuff like that are kind of booming over it and such. But like, what the fuck? Like, that aside, reality truly is just lining up with me reading these spooky noodle stories on the internet on a weekly basis.
It's
Like-
spooky noodle story.
Yeah. Creepypasta. Spooky
Yeah.
noodles.
It's close enough, yeah.
Yeah. Like, this year truly has been the year of the Vossen and connective tissues.
I don't know how it keeps happening.
I don't know. Like, literally last night, I like, full disclosure, last night was the when I was able to like get around to like to read this story and get up my notes and stuff like that. Not an hour after I was finished reading, I hopped onto TikTok and started seeing a slew of videos from the Congress hearing, and I was like, wait, what?
Are they monitoring what story you're reading?
I
And then
don't know.
The algorithm is giving you stuff that's relevant to it.
It wouldn't be like an algorithm. Like, if it's an algorithm, it's like going directly into my brain, because I usually like just like it's like for a lot of cases, unless we get like suggestions, which I mean, Icydice did like straight up suggest these stories since like they had recently posted these ones. But like most of the time, it's like Russian roulette. Like I hop onto like various websites to see like what creepypastas like pique my interest based off their titles and such.
Yeah.
Or like what stories do I recall that we haven't touched on, but are like I know are pretty iconic, and like I want to like cover them for the show because they're like effectively historical documents for creepypastas.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's either the government's been doing psyops and like is subliminally like turning me into like toward these various stories that link up into reality, or like it's just a really crazy happenstance
All year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, now that my tinfoil hat is firmly over my noggin, you know, on top of the cloak or on top of the hood.
Yeah, how else would you wear it?
Yeah, exactly. Not gonna wear it under the hood. That's just silly.
Mm-hmm.
I will move on to the next thing I have.
Okay.
Ellie stood as a pillar of this community, doing what she could to ensure that future generations had a reliable shoulder to lean on. Now a community stands as one, hearts torn apart for the Singleton family. All right, guys, I'm sorry. I have to say this.
I understand.
One might say the community, and indeed Mr. Singleton, is single now. I'll just see myself out.
Yeah. A little too soon.
A little too soon for this fictional event.
Yeah. Any bachelorettes out there?
Well, just like ridiculous. Yeah. It's like Mr. Singleton is now single.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's low bearing fruit, and I'm not lofty enough to not take that.
That's normally my job.
I know.
You took my job.
I did indeed. But I'll move on to the next thing I have. So this is the sheriff's statement. Our thoughts and prayers go out to David Baker and to any and all who are undoubtedly hurting at this time. We will be conducting an investigation into this incident. Absolutely. I cannot confirm anything to you with certainty. But we have reason to believe that, well, this incident may have been the product of foul play. The chances of that being the case are low. Still, our officers are working diligently to ensure that this was not the cause of her death, because that, well, it would be heart-wrenching for all of us. even more than it already is. We'll do what we can to keep all of you updated. Thank you for your time, and God bless you. You gotta love that the sheriff here starts out strong with his statement to the public, but then just kind of like really goes back and forth on the on his confidence on the case. Like, we suspect it's foul play, but that seems pretty unlikely. Or the one that really got me, and I'm sure like this is just like how, because like maybe a mishap of me how I read it, but it was like we'll be conducting an investigation into this incident. Absolutely. I cannot confirm anything to you with certainty. What?
Can confirm what? That they're going to actually investigate?
Yeah. Or like
Totally gonna investigate. Probably.
Yeah. Or it's like and like still if it is, it's like and he goes on like it's like we don't suspect this is foul play, but it's pretty unlikely. Still, if it is, I have our boys in blue looking into the matter to make sure it's not the case.
Yeah, they care more about proving that it's not foul play than actually figuring out what it is.
Exactly. It just seems like someone really needed to like just move the sheriff away from the reporters and the mics.
Yeah.
Like, okay, sheriff, let's get you away from this. Like, no. Like as he's like hiccuping from like drinking, he's like, I gotta give this speech. Like, okay, grandpa, come on. But then we get this like right afterward, like after the statement and stuff, like from Jay. Would you look at that? Do you know what I see? Useless fucking platitudes. Thoughts and prayers don't mean shit to us. Not to mention how vague Sheriff Mackey was about the supposed investigation they were hosting. So I'm glad, like this makes sense because this is kind of a thoroughfare or like a through line throughout the story. But I'm glad Jay brings this up, that like the fact that the story, like this article, is like these articles like are clearly like showing like the incompetence or like the cover up, like a blatant cover up or like some blatant like trying like the like just the incompetence of the police or like the cover up of something of a bigger power in the news articles. And in fact, at least for me, as I was reading the story, that I realized like that's the whole point that Jay is trying to get across, is just like all of these articles are basically propaganda to try and placate the population.
Yeah.
But my next one here, suppose for a moment that you don't believe me or my leaks, that you don't believe that this was all the doing of a wretched ghoul with sadistic tendencies. Is it not still strange that it took this long for a homicide investigation to be publicly launched? Each death took place inside the victims' homes, while their husbands were sleeping in the same bed as them. Are we meant to believe that a killer did their dirty work and the husbands just didn't notice? Okay, so a little bit of brainstorming for me for this, because as I was getting through this part of the story, I was like, I feel like I could draw on this story for fodder for a Delta Green game. And anybody who's not in the know, Delta Green is a tabletop RPG where you play as government agents or federal agents of various colors, that are part of a either a legal or illegal conspiracy to protect the world from the mythos. The Cthulhu mythos specifically. And yes, I'm blatantly just going to use that. So like he says, like a wretched ghoul is with sadistic tendencies. Like, so I'm just going to straight up like, it's weird. Usually I'm like, oh, we can do a Vossen thing for this, but like we did that last story for this series. So I'm going to try and like, color it up a little bit and actually have something that's not Vossen for this story.
Yes.
I know. So yeah, I'm thinking that the idea for a scenario based off of this story is that the agents are investigating a string of murders similar to the ones in this story, like the same MO and such. And it turns out to be an actual Lovecraftian ghoul, who are basically these kind of creepy, dog-headed, like rubbery-skinned, grave-digging corpse eaters with hooves and stuff like that. And they lurk in like the shadows and like in subterranean areas, and they can kind of burrow around and get into places and have mythos magic to like screw around with people and such. And as the murder cases continue, like you find out that it's this Lovecraftian ghoul, and through some twisted mindset that the ghoul has gotten a taste for fetal flesh, which ghouls by nature are eaters of the dead. But I mean, if you rip a baby from the wound prematurely, and in the way described in these accounts, that criteria is going to get checkmarked pretty quick.
Yeah.
Also, why are you guys looking at me like that? Yeah, it's a little gruesome and a little like a little like visceral, but bear with me for a little bit more.
Given the subject material, it's understandable.
Exactly. So, and perhaps you can pull from that faux science concept, or that fake science theory, that babies for a short period of time when they start their life are actually immensely intelligent and have like universal secrets floating in their heads before it fades as they get older. Yes, that baby hyper intelligent idea is the plot of a movie called Baby Geniuses. But I actually recently reheard that theory on like a unsolved mysteries video I was watching. So I was like, wait, that's an actual theory that somebody has? That's not just that wasn't just a movie plot. So yeah. So, and since ghouls gain knowledge, at least in like the Lovecraft in the Delta Green mythos and the Cthulhu mythos aspect of it, when ghouls eat the brains of the people when ghouls eat the brains of dead people, they gain the knowledge and memories of that person by consuming the brain. So maybe this ghoul has some kind of like it's looking for like greater cosmic knowledge, and so like that's why it's found out about this theory. So maybe it's trying to eat babies, like even before they get out of the womb, so that they can like acquire that cosmic knowledge. Also, on a simpler idea, maybe the ghoul is eating unborn babies as part of a ritual to feel like blissfully innocent again, like after an immortal undead existence of existential dread and inhuman horror. It yearns for a little bit more of that humanity that it once had, that like blissful, happy ignorance that it once had. And so that's where it's like found, like by consuming the flesh of babies or the brains of babies and such. It can get that, and like maybe it's even some kind of like an addictive thing. And so like the ghoul is like a druggie, and that's why it's getting more and more like, maybe that's why the murders are happening more and more frequently, as it's getting more and more like it needs its hit more and more.
Just reminding me of that South Park episode where
stem cells.
Stem cells with what's his name? Superman.
Like, I can't remember his name either. The one that like fell off a horse and became disabled.
Yeah.
I can't remember that guy's name. Superman actors.
Christopher Reeve.
There is that. Yep.
Yeah. In the episode, he's acting like he's a super villain. Because every time he eats like the stem cells from a fetus, he gets stronger.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Kind of like that.
That played Lex Luthor was like being the good guy.
Yeah.
Telling him you shouldn't do it.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, like have that, and then like as a result of this, like it's just like the one ghoul, or like maybe like probably just like one or maybe two ghouls, but like because and they're like addicted to it like a drug, like doing this. And in fact, like as a result, they've also become exiled from the rest of like ghoul. I don't think it's a society.
It a faux pas among ghouls?
Well, it's certainly faux pas to eat living flesh, or to eat like they're eaters of the dead. They don't they actually it's with some cults of ghouls, it's they actually honor the dead they eat as part of their religion or part of their spirituality. they're human. They're human or greater intelligence for the most part. There are feral ghouls. Like there are
I was
ghouls
gonna
that have.
say, I thought they were just all feral.
Oh no. There's whole like cults like a person can become a ghoul through ritualistic cannibalism in the Cthulhu mythos. And they will retain a part of their personality as a human. Like that's the whole thing behind the original story that introduced ghouls to Lovecraft's stories. It was Pickman's model. They are an intelligent breed of mythos monster.
Okay.
But yeah, there's always like exceptions. Like there's always like outliers. Like this one could be an outlier because like some of the ghouls like we don't eat the living. We also don't eat babies. Frank, get the hell out of our. You're out of the club.
Frank, that's fucked up.
Frank, we're ghouls. We think that's fucked up.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if I was going to use this material and like this idea for a story for a game idea, like for a Cthulhu or Delta Green game, I would be checking with my players about any X cards or even like just make sure they're comfortable with these kind of themes and stuff.
Yeah.
Given that it's an extremely touchy, visceral horror that we're presenting in this scenario concept, but yeah, I just like it's direct. It's a direct pull from the story where it's like a ghoul, But I was like, oh yeah, that actually would be a good idea for the monster of the story if it's just a Lovecraftian ghoul that's just got a hankering for baby flesh.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
reasons that actually make sense.
Yeah,
if you believe that conspiracy theory.
Exactly. Or again, even if you don't go with that, like use that theory, like even if it's just like some other reason, like, I mean, to quote a line from a show about or a film about post-apocalyptic or the train apocalypse. I hate that I know what humans taste like, and I hate that I know that babies taste the best.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Yeah. And if you know what the movie I'm referencing, you get some brownie points.
Especially you, Brownie.
Exactly. Yeah, especially you, Brownie. But yeah, I'll move on to the next thing I have. Away from game fodder ideas and such. What is this? Yeah, so don't worry. I've got so much more to share. I'm not done exposing the hidden truths I found in the police files I cracked. I am simply waiting for the most opportune time to release more of what I have. Be patient, my friends. It will be worth it. Okay, so reading this entire story, I feel like this story should, or it's sort of a step back from what we got in the previous story that had like interview transcribes leaked from the police and Craig Middleton and his account of what happened to his wife and such, and like what he recalled and such. And like we get like more about the monster in the last story, and in this one it's sort of just like it seems like it's just backpedaling and just kind of it seemed to me like Jay was padding in this one. Like
I was waiting to interrupt and say padding if you
want
to get there.
Yeah, it's like stalling on leaking out more actual like tangible information, and instead just giving us this this padded out like information about like the news articles. It's like yeah, you already said like you already gave us information in the last story, mind you. He didn't really go too into like how blatantly the police were covering up. He just kind of stated the police were covering up, and here's some interviews and stuff about last story. But in this one, I wonder if perhaps that was the point of this story, is like the character here, Jay, is purposely recapping and stalling the leaks on on newer tangible info for the purpose of garnering more attention for the bigger reveal in the next story. Though to me, it felt like it still felt like this story could have either been like most of the story could have either been before the like kind of if this has gone first and then we got the interview with Craig Middleton in the first story, or if a good chunk of this story where it's like him like criticizing, critiquing the articles had been part of the first story. to kind of hammer home that like the police of Morefolk are actually like are corrupt, and like here's evidence, like here's the newspaper articles, and it's like it goes deeper than just the cops. Like the news is also in on it because they're connected to the cops and such. I don't know, like, and also I thought that we could have. I kind of wish we had gotten more information about, like, at the end of the story we get about this Dennis Bauer kid who's been missing for a week. Like, so, like that's a new piece of information we get for this story in particular, and but we don't get an article about the kid missing or anything like that from the news. Like, that's something I kind of wish we had because it would have, like, I think it would have capped off this story much more nicely, and it would have made the story a little bit have more of a point because it would have given us something new other than, like, because we already knew about the wives getting killed, and like how the husbands were reacting, and how the police were telling the husbands to kind of react in the previous story. Like, we kind of we gleaned some of that, and this one just kind of like it elaborates a little bit more on that idea, but it just still felt like it was like taking a step back, rather than going forward, until the very end. But then we just get this mention that, oh, by the way, the killer's patterns changed a little bit because like because supposedly this kid Dennis Bauer who went missing might be related to these murders of these women who were pregnant and their babies were ripped from them. Yeah, it just, I don't know. I enjoyed the read of the story, but reading through it, it kind of felt like we got nothing really new until like the very end. But then, like, even then, I kind of wanted more from the one new piece of information we got. So, yeah, that's basically my the end of my actual thoughts here. While I was reading, there's something horrible happening in Morefolk. Mikey, these stands for evil.
Well, I'm probably gonna tote the same sort of thing. Like, nothing new is really added, and in fact, I went back to my notes for the previous one, and the previous story I liked better because it had more of a creepy factor to it, because it sort of explained the monster a bit, that what it was doing, and this one doesn't even really talk about the monster.
It's just talking about the cop greed, or like the cop corruption.
Yeah, the cover up, and to me, it just comes off as the ravings of a madman.
Yeah.
And there was no real creep factor. Now, if you combine it with the previous story somehow, then it might be better because you still have that creep factor involved, because you go, oh, well, these stories and the monster are connected type thing.
Yeah.
But without the monster even mentioned, it's just these stories and like, oh, there's a serial killer on the loose type thing.
Which, I mean, a serial killer is horrifying, but like, we get no real mention of it aside from like these newspaper articles. But that's not the focus of this story. The focus here is, oh, look at these newspaper articles. They're clearly covering something up, or like the police have clearly been covering them up every time the articles have come out. Like that, like, I'm honestly with you on this. Like, I feel like this story, if there was to be a revise of, or like if Icydice was to take both stories, like something awful and something horrible, they could have like taken like some of this part of this story, like the newspaper article critique, and put it into the last story to make it better. It would have been fleshed out a little bit more, I think.
But yeah, the main issue I have is that this on its own isn't all that creepy.
No, actually, agreed.
Yeah. And that's the end of my actual thoughts.
Okay. Gamer.
Okay. So, again, I'm probably going to be parroting some of the things you guys both said again, but it is what it is. I'll start with this. I have to hand it to the pigs. They're not as clueless as I believe. What I once thought were monkeys dressed in uniform flinging shit at the wall are actually monkeys using rudimentary tools to fling their shit at the wall. I'll admit, it's cute. I like that. I think it's a funny way to insult them.
Yeah.
Lots of sass up front.
Mm-hmm. Love to see it from an anonymous whistleblower.
Mm-hmm. And then in regards to Jay like roasting the police department, I find it kind of odd how he's outright telling them how to fix their security and stop him from doing what he's doing. And even going into giving suggestions on what to do to stop him from getting in ever again. Because he's basically saying like, oh, I'm sure now you guys will either like reformat everything and start over or go to paper or whatever. Like he's giving them examples of how to stop him from finding this information.
Yeah.
And like
to be
sorry. Go ahead.
No, to be fair, a lot of criminals that like mock the police do that in their notes to the police, or I'm pretty sure that's what's something that the Zodiac killer did to the police back in the day. Like I think he would send letters to newspaper offices openly mocking the police investigations, and like
them is fine, but like it's weird that he's telling them how to stop him.
Well, it's a sign of it's a form of arrogance. Basically, it's a type of arrogance. Like,
yeah, I guess, but
basically, like, oh, it doesn't matter what you do. Like, I already have what I need. You're already
He doesn't. That's the thing. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Okay,
like,
really? It seemed like he.
Look, okay, let me talk.
Okay, yeah, no, you're right.
First off, if the cops are as dumb as Jay seems to think they are, they might not even have an idea of how to stop him until he told them how to stop him.
Yeah.
You know, like they might have just ignored it and just kept going and not really been able to stop him. Because like, and he says it doesn't matter because he has all the info he needs, but he doesn't. Because he did say he couldn't find the name of the unnamed agency that is like being referenced constantly. So he still does need information.
Yeah, but he can't get it from the police anymore. Like he's tapped what he could get information from the police. Or at least he feels like he has. So
only
he's basically
the police haven't slipped up yet and mentioned that company, but they still might in the future.
That's true, but I think like this also we're kind of getting a bit of this story. Like it's a character. It's a bit of like character flavor, I think, for Jay, because we're seeing how arrogant he is, or or we're kind of seeing the kind of like person he is, because he's like he feel like he's a human being, so he just like he feels that like he can't or he doesn't like he's gotten all the information he can from the pigs, as it were. So it's just like they're useless now to me. I might as well just like mock them and tell them how to do their job, kind of thing.
Fair.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll move on to this next one.
Mm-hmm.
There are always dozens, hundreds, even thousands of hands intricately drawing each needle through each thread until a nest of lies and misrepresentations have been constructed and cast upon what? You all, the helpless fish adrift at sea. Going where the tide takes you, yet you are not helpless. There's a hand out stretched towards you. It is my hand. I know you said this before, but I wanted to say it again.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like how Jay has changed into this super dramatic and super snarky like hacker man.
Yeah, he's definitely getting more arrogant on.
Yeah, but I hate him now.
I know. Yeah, it definitely like turns me off from him being like this conspiracy nut.
Likable in the first story is the thing, because he just felt like he was a person who was rightfully upset that he found out about this cover up and he was exposing it. For this one, it seems like he's on stage performing in front of the whole town, hamming it up as much as possible for no real reason.
Yeah, he's gotten a little bit more. Maybe since the last story, he's got a little bit more like cocky, a little bit more like, I'm going to showboat this. I am the master of the truth.
The theater school in between.
Yeah. But again, like also like this is kind of what happens. I get like not to pull from like I pull back from like to the Zodiac thing. Like this is kind of what he did as well. Like he started off, his letters were mocking, and then they got more and more like kind of mocking and like flamboyant as it went on. Like that's kind of how like serial killers, when they send letters out to like the police stations or the news, when they get cocky, they get really like flamboyant and stuff like that. Why this guy who's like just trying to figure out the truth is acting like that, it's kind of weird. But
my problem is it went from 0 to 100 instantly.
Yeah,
there is no slow progression of him getting more and more flamboyant and cocky with all this fluff that he's saying. It's just the first, like I reread the first story after reading this because I'm like, he couldn't have been like this in the first story. I liked the first one. I gave it a full recommendation. So I went back and read the entire first story. And what was good about the first story is he's like, shit's going on. They're not telling us stuff. Here's proof. And then you read the proof, and it's like, see, I told you. Like, that's basically what it is. Most of the story is the actual factual evidence. In this one, most of the story is him, like, reciting his script, his lines on the play that he's putting in front of us here, which is what it is, basically.
Yeah. Like, I do kind of agree with you on this. Like, I feel like the snark at the very beginning of this part was fine, but then he just hammed it up way too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll move on. So we get to this part where he says, I'll tell you, it's the narratives, the news, the media, and the outlets all serve as distractions. Do not be so naive to think that the news is on your side. They actively serve the interests of the authorities and their agendas. And once you become privy to that fact, it's obvious. Still, you might find my claims to be dubious. So let's take a look together, shall we? Allow me to show you precisely what I'm talking about. When I read that, I'm like, finally! 600 words in, and we're finally going to get some new info. For a character who's trying to expose the truth and warn the masses, he sure takes a damn long time.
Yeah,
to, like,
he sure likes
get
to
that info out there just for the sake of drama.
Yeah, basically. Yep.
And then the quote unquote new information he's talking about is just him linking the articles about the previous deaths, which were already talked about in the previous episode, the previous entry.
Yeah.
But I'll move on.
Okay.
So I probably said this in the episode of the previous story, but I don't see the police and the media as evil as Jay claims them to be. Like, yes, they're lying to the people, but they're doing it to not spread chaos around the town and break everyone's minds that a legit boogeyman is killing people. You know, however, I do believe that since the police know what's going on, they should tie these murders to something believable. Tell the people that there's a serial killer on the loose, something that they can understand. And yes, eventually we get there. I wrote this down way before that. Yeah. But like even still, with what was said, it wasn't enough because like they know what it is, so they can tell the people of the town ways to protect themselves. Like the suspect is known to only target pregnant women, and they hide under the bed, attacking in the night. So check under your beds and lock up before you sleep. Like something, or like keep a weapon nearby to protect yourselves. But they don't try to do anything to help protect the town with their notices that they're putting in.
I just had a really good idea that might have fixed this and like is prevalent to what you're talking about right here. You may already have this in your notes, and I'm sorry if I'm like stepping on your shoes on your toes about this. But what if they actually had like the in the interviews and stuff like that, they had actually like eventually got to that part where it's like we're having a curfew for 9. Check out informing the public of this town to like lock your doors, check your homes, like check under your bed and stuff like that, because this person may have broken in already and is like scoping you out, and that's why it shifts its pattern, and that's why the kid is missing now.
Yeah,
like that, like its pattern is shifted because it's now that it's one avenue of getting victims is being secured. It's looking for different victims now. It's shifting its focus.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting way of doing it.
Yeah. And then if we got like an article saying like that, the kid was last seen like before the curfew, but like close, like kind of like in the last hour before the curfew, and then like they went missing, like.
Mm-hmm. Which might be another reason why they're bumping the curfew up more.
Yeah, or I guess lowering the curfew, like bring it down, technically, but yeah, making it early.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be an interesting way of doing it. To tie it in, show that the monster is like thinking and having to figure out new ways to do it because the town is actually doing something to thwart him.
Yeah, there's actually an insidious
trying to do, because like whether or not they want to tell the masses that there's a creature is one thing, but they can at least tell them how to protect themselves from it.
Yeah,
because like even telling them that there's the murderer like attached under the bed and here's ways that you can secure your home before you go to bed, that alone would scare the town, as it should.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the right thing to do.
Like,
it lets them know that bad shit is going down, but without making it a massive panic of a legit creature. And also, it's something that's believable, because if they said that there's a supernatural undead creature here that's doing these murders, they might not even believe them.
Yeah.
They probably won't believe them, honestly.
Yeah. Or like honestly, even if like the authorities aren't doing that, I feel like that's something Jay should be putting in these in these emails that he's sending to everybody in town.
Yeah, like he's saying what it does, but he's not trying to help. He's just trying to expose.
Yeah, and like honestly, he like you were saying like, oh, he's just like this he's like, I don't agree with Jay's like stance on like with the cops and stuff. It's like honestly, he's just the archetypal like conspiracy theorist nut who's just like trying to get to the truth, like knowing the truth sets you free, man. Like that again, like the same people that like put like that are known for in stereotypes to like wear tinfoil hats or like live like be in a dingy room with like a laptop like spouting like talking about like truth in quotes online. Like that's kind of the character I see as Jay.
Yeah, me too.
That one of those very like maybe twitchy like kind of like hopped up on too much caffeine or like energy drinks and just like always like paranoid and stuff like that.
But that's my whole problem. Like, yes, that is exactly how I see Jay in this story.
But he wasn't like
story,
that.
He was just a guy that's out there mowing his lawn, you know? He's just a normal guy that's concerned about all this stuff. He's mad about it, but he's not insane.
Yeah, he definitely took a turn between in the couple of months between stories. He definitely took a turn.
Yeah. For no real reason either is the thing.
Yeah.
If something happened to him that would explain it, great. Like maybe the cops like actually hunted him down
or had a close call, like he and so now he's like getting more paranoid.
Yeah, actually at the start it says this is a new email address, though the reason for that should be obvious. Like, what happened?
Well, I think for that, like that's simply like the previous email was just like a burner email, kind of like how
each one is going to be from a new email address for no real reason.
Yeah, because it like it's like how like spy like in it's basic spy tradecraft, like you use it like a burner phone kind of thing, like you make one call, throw it away, and then get another one later at a farther location.
Yeah.
So they can't be traced. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Either way, I'll move on.
Yep.
She says 3 people had to die for them to announce that they were being murdered. 3 whole people. And yes, like I get that 3 people had to die for them to do this, but there's a saying like 2 is a coincidence, 3 is a pattern.
Yeah.
So that confirms it. Granted, these killings are very specific, taking an unborn child out of the mother. So I'd say, yeah, once it happens twice, that's a pattern. That's enough of a pattern.
It's like, okay, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
First one, hang on a minute. Second one, something's not right here. Third one, I think something's going on here.
There might be a connection to these.
Yeah.
I don't think so, but maybe.
It's possible. I mean,
yeah.
Let's wait it out. Let's give it a week.
Like on the second murder, like in that article, it should say that we have reason to believe that these 2 murders are connected. Like you don't have to say why, but just say that they're connected and there's a serial killer on the loose in the second one.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and then this next one. You should also consider the fact, despite these husbands having been in close proximity to their wives at the time of the killings, they were never once considered suspects in the case. What could possibly account for that, other than the fact that the cops knew that someone else, or something else, was responsible from the very beginning? And to that, I'm like, or the fact that all the killings were done in the same way. How and why would all these husbands have coordinated to do the same kind of killings? Like, and stagger them out? Like,
I mean, unless it's like all part of like a group, like like
for the greater good.
or the wife killers club.
Yeah, they all go to meetings.
Reverse. We're now gathered here today for the order of the Reverse Black Widow.
Yeah.
Or the Black Widowers Association. Because a widower is usually the husband.
Yes.
I kind of want, not gonna lie, I kind of want that to be the case. Actually, turns out it actually is just like a cult of like homicidal, of secreted like serial killer or like homicidal disgruntled husbands. It might ruin the mystique.
Just use this creepy monster as a cover-up story.
Yeah, exactly. Like if it turned out that like this was all like actually like a ploy from some like this like weird like postmodern like cult of disgruntled husbands. But like I think that would also steal the mystique of the story a little bit for me. Like I actually wouldn't want that to be the case.
I kind of do.
I kind of want it to be the case because it would definitely
real.
It does, but at the same time, it's like I go into a creepypasta like wanting there to be an aspect of the fantastic, or like something unnatural in a horror story. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do like the occasional true crime like creepypasta, like the ones that are like based off of like something that could actually be happening. But like, I want there to be a monster in this story that's like not human.
The safety blanket of supernatural.
Exactly, I want the safety blanket of the fantastic.
Yeah, fair.
I want a safety blanket of the unnatural. But yeah,
yeah, but still, highest amount of creepy shit that can actually happen.
Yeah, I know, especially when you're like, so yeah, because like I think the worst kind of mundane fear is like when you realize that like somebody may be in your home.
Yeah, and that's
like
this is.
Yeah, that sense of invasion in your privacy and like your place of safety.
Yep. That's the one spot where you're supposed to be safe, you know.
Yeah.
But either way, I'll move on. Here's all I have to say. Either you're with me, the people, and the truth, or you're going to be a mindless sheep licking the boots of those keeping the real facts at bay. The time is coming to make a damn choice. So I'm not saying I'm a sheep, but I'm not down with how extreme Jay is being with all of this. Because like I agree with the simple message of we know it's supernatural murderer, confirm it so we can protect ourselves. But his tinfoil hat shit pisses me off. He's being like as bad as they are. Basically at this point, because he's taking forever to actually tell us the information and tell us how to protect ourselves. And
yeah, I feel like it would have won me over a little bit more with Jay's side if he had actually like gone in, like either in this story or the last one, brought up like it's like make sure to check your homes, like stay safe out there. We're all part of this community. Even
he doesn't seem to care about other people.
Yeah, he doesn't actually care about the other people in his community. He just cares about quote unquote the truth.
He almost feels like he's a disgruntled ex-employee.
Yeah, he's an ex-cop.
All he cares about is just targeting the cops.
Oh god, he's an ex-cop or is an ex-journalist from the newspaper.
Yeah,
like maybe what I can't remember what the journalist's name is, but like I think his last name is Pratt. Like Mr. Pratt took his job, and like he's actually just pissed. Like the whole reason behind all the opus behind this like this like getting to the bottom of things is the deep-seated thing of like Mr. Pratt took his journalist job at the paper
Took his job.
because and like he blames that it's because like, oh well, he married into the into Mackey's family, and and Mr. Mackey's the sheriff.
He's pretty okay though.
Oh my god! no, I was. Oh god! Now I can't unsee Sheriff Mackey as Mr. Mackey. Is it Mr. McMackey or is it Mr. Mackey?
I
Like,
feel like it's McMackey 'cause-
in South Park, is it Mr. McMackey or
it's
Mr. Mackey?
in South
Okay. Oh
Park.
god. Okay. Then yeah, it's like okay. Oh god.
Yeah,
it's
Tom
Mr.
Mackey. Yeah.
So actually, when I was doing the speech earlier, it should have had a lot more mk's.
Yeah.
Or it's like, well, okay. Hang on, I want to sorry, quick tangent. I want to do that. Hang on.
Okay, go for it.
What the- Our thoughts and prayers go out to David Baker, okay, and any and all who are undoubtedly hurting at this time, okay. We will be conducting an investigation into this incident, okay. Absolutely. I can't do it anymore.
That's
I was like falling apart. Oh god, I'm so sorry. Icydice.
You shouldn't be sorry. I should be sorry. I'm the one who made this so far.
Thank you for your time and God bless you. Okay.
Yeah. Between Mr. Mackey and they Tucker Jarb.
Oh my god.
And Christopher Reeve. This just takes place in South Park universe.
Oh no.
Yes, I've heard it.
Morefolk. Come on down. Oh, what the hell's the song? It's like going down south. Going down to Morefolk. Gonna
Have myself a time.
friendly faces everywhere. God. Oh my god.
It could be done so easily.
Oh god. I'm so sorry, Icydice. And also, damn you, gamer. Damn
That's
you
fair.
straight to hell.
You can damn me all you like. That's fine.
Continue.
Yeah, I guess I'll do that. All right, this quote. After all, it already has claimed more than just those set of victims. You all might be aware that little Dennis Bowers went missing last week. Guess what? So, basically, he's saying like they're lying to you about what happened to him. Like,
Yeah.
At this point, I'm like, fucking finally, some actual new development in the story. It only took 2,918 words to get here, but we got something actually new finally.
I feel like we all had the same thoughts or like the same
Yeah.
like critique, but like we like
Just at different extremes. Like I counted the words
Yeah.
because of how angry I was reading it.
and like I feel like I was like the most lighthearted because like I did like the read. It feels like a step back.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I don't feel like any of us have actually like disagreed on any of our comments here so far.
Not quite, no. It just affected us differently. But like,
Yeah.
my whole point with this quote here too is like,
Mhm.
if Jay knows so damn much, why isn't he warning us about the child abductions more now? Aside from just dropping it like a damn cliffhanger to a movie.
Yeah. Like I really
someone's
wish
life
there
we're talking about, and he's using it as an exclamation point on his story.
like especially like it would have been so good if we'd had like an article about the missing person so we got a little more information about the circumstances, albeit potentially unreliable narrator to that because the journalist, but then like have Jay like say it seems the who or whatever is doing this has shifted their pattern or something like that. It's like stay safe out there, family or community.
Yeah.
Like something like that. Like yeah. But yeah, no, he's like, tune in next time when I'm really gonna blow this out of the water. It's like, no, tell us now.
Yeah, you
Do
have
it.
the ability to do it now. Why are you waiting? Unless there's a damn good reason that he's waiting.
And to be fair, I know based off the title of the next one, it kind of like maybe it's because like these are just emails being sent out across like the entire town. The next one's called the Morefolk broadcast incident. So it seems like perhaps the next one is going to involve that maybe he tried getting the message out via a broadcast of some
like
kind.
hacks the TV station or the radio or something.
Exactly, yeah. So that's actually a really cool idea. Like for this, it's just it just comes off a little like okay, I get you're waiting for like an opportunity to like hack the broadcast, like a local broadcast. But you should maybe also put into these entries that you're sending like via email in this fictitious scenario, like ways like to properly inform the community you're supposedly trying to defend or protect by giving them the information that the police aren't giving them to protect themselves, or at least to like be like we've all been saying.
Like I said before, he is no better than the other news articles out there because he's not telling us. He knows the right information and he is telling us other things.
Yeah.
He's no better than them at this point.
Yeah.
Which is annoying.
It is.
But I shall move on. So, my last note is kind of short. After reading this entire thing, what new info do we have? The two things I wrote down are the sheriff's son is writing the reports. Yes, that's true, but that could just be his damn job, and regardless of the case that he's working on.
Maybe Pratt isn't actually being corrupted by his father-in-law. Maybe he's actually like presenting the news as it is. Like
maybe he writes all the articles.
Yeah, exactly. Like if Morefolk is a small town like it's been portrayed as, then like there's probably it's probably a small paper like a small like town newspaper. So like there's only going to be like one or two journalists max.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
and
like it's sorry.
Then the second bit of new info is like the child abductions are tied to the creature. Yes. Okay, that's one new thing that's actually new. Is there anything else that's new in this?
No.
Thank you.
Like no, all the I'm fully agreeing with you. Like all the articles, like I'm repeating myself over. Those articles I really feel should have been in the previous story because they elaborate on what was in that story.
Yeah. Speaking of the articles, did you have a problem with them?
No, honestly, I didn't.
Newspaper man?
No, honestly, I don't know what you're talking about.
Mr. Man that knows stuff about newspaper.
No, honestly, I did actually like look at them and I was like, no, this is pretty standard for like a community newspaper.
I was like, what about like the ends where it kind of like gets a little like flowery about stuff?
No, that's par for the course for especially for a smaller newspaper and stuff like that's pretty par for the course.
Okay.
I think I was looking at the head. Honestly, I was also looking at the headlines because like each one has like a little header or like a title, which is basically like what the headlines are. And I was looking at those, like they're a little. I'd buy them. Like I would accept them as a newspaper headline, but like they're a little iffy. But like otherwise, on the whole, it was pretty realistic for what I've seen in newspaper articles.
Yeah, that's what I felt too for the most part.
Yeah, because and honestly, like it's kind of refreshing because like maybe Icydice has like done some research on like what or like maybe read an news article or two about like to like kind of get the right style, because like sometimes like in creepypastas when somebody does a newspaper article, it's really just there as an exposition dump for details that wouldn't be in a newspaper because of like sensitivity and such.
Yeah,
but these ones are pretty standard for a newspaper.
But what's kind of funny is Jay has a problem with them being pretty standard and like subtle about.
Oh yeah, because he's a paranoid conspiracy nut.
Like he would want these articles to say that the fetus was ripped out of them by hand and stuff like that in the article. Meanwhile, that would be unrealistic for articles.
Yeah, like I'll give you this an example. A couple years back, there was a newspaper article in one of the towns, and there was a photo that we were like that there was originally supposed to be a photo that accompanied the article, and we were like, yeah, no, that's got to be dropped because it was straight up showing a victim who had just been curb stomped, like legitimately curb stomped. And I was just like, and like I remember the higher ups were just like, yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, that we can't show that. Like that's sensationalism. So they dropped that part of the like part of the article and stuff like that was that the was more of the photo that had been taken, but yeah, or I think they might have like censored it if anything.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's the end of minutes until final thoughts.
Okay. Well, congrats. We're on to final thoughts.
Great.
Thanks for the segue.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm floored that like all of us basically did not disagree with each other, even though we have different opinions of the story for the most part, or at least like there's like two versus one kind of different opinion on the story.
Yeah, we agree in varying intensities.
Yeah, because like for my final thoughts, it's like it's sort of a weird, or it's sort of weird that this part of the narrative comes after the previous one, because it doesn't seem to give us much new except for like what we've just talked about.
Yeah.
Like the two pieces of like this kid going missing, and then like what was the first one?
The writer.
Yeah, and then the fact that like we get a little bit more about the newspaper article, like the newspaper situation in the town.
But that isn't necessarily proof of any corruption.
Yeah, no, and it like, and actually to that like this story extrapolates on things that were mentioned in the previous story, but doesn't really say anything new until the very end, where we find out about Dennis. I liked it. Like, I liked reading the story, but even as I was reading it, it felt like padding on its own. Like, and narratively, it is. Like, I think this is like really just like Jay trying to like garner up attention to himself, so that when he releases the big info dump from like perhaps like a broadcast or something, maybe in the next story, hopefully, people are going to be listening. But from a writing point, like from this, like as a story kind of point of view, I feel like this story, you need to read the first one, and then you need to immediately or in short order read this one if they are not going to be combined together. Or and like even if I feel like even this one could have been tweaked a little bit to go before, like both of them could have been tweaked a little bit, so this went before the previous one, because like this one is sort of like, it's like a reverse escalation of a mystery. Like,
yeah, I see what you're
this
saying.
one, if this was to go first, like if you were to tweak it up a little bit so that like the information that we get in this one, like the newspaper critiques and stuff like that, this would naturally kind of ramp, start inclining on the slope of escalation, and then the first story, Something Awful, goes next, would ramp up escalation even further, because we'd actually get like legitimate transcripts from interviews with the victims that were in the newspapers that we just read about.
That's true, yeah.
And like that's what to me this is. It's like, it's basically like the first one, like we went up an incline and then fell off and had to restart walking up that hill again.
Yeah.
But it was a much softer softer grade of slope for this story, and that's kind of what it felt like. It's like it just felt like these stories were put in the wrong order, in terms of and this is from like a reading point of view, not like perhaps like in terms of like the story, but like of what the character might have like wanted to do for this. But from a reading standpoint, I feel like this story should have gone first rather than so Something Horrible should have gone first rather than Something Awful.
But that's also choosing to put stuff in the order that makes sense for escalation. But if this is meant to be a realistic take, then you wouldn't necessarily be giving stuff out in the most dramatic order. You'd be giving it out in the order you get it.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. Like, that's why I was saying, like, that's why it's like narratively this makes sense, because this is basically like, this is what Jay, the character, wants to do for like, to kind of again pad out garner some attention after releasing the big bombshell the first time. And then he's got an even bigger bomb. He's got the atom bombshell coming up, but he's got to get like he's got to get more he's got to garner more attention, like, so he can spread the vector more.
So basically what happened first, the first entry was him like launching a shot out of his artillery cannons, like, this is real. And then the second entry is, I gotta reload. he's not actually giving any new information, but he's preparing the new information.
Yeah.
Like loading that last shell in, and on the end of the shell is the face of the kid who was like captured, who was taken. He hasn't fired it yet, but he's loading it.
And this one's called and this shell's called the Big Bertha. So like it's getting it's going to be a big one, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
It's a prototype setup. Like it's Schrodinger's like big reveal.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we don't know we haven't read the next story yet, but and he's like, oh, it's gonna hit real bad. Just you wait. I'm gonna hit like now that I've hit the first shot, now I'm calibrating now, so I know exactly where to hit next.
Yep.
Like I've got like basically he hit one to test the water. The first one was to test the waters. Now that he's like they allowed him to calibrate and do some slight adjustments to the cannon.
Yeah.
To get hit the right mark. So yeah. And again, like realistically, that's kind of how like things would go. From a reading point of view, though, like this story I feel like should have gone first, but it makes sense in the setting, in the fiction. And honestly, that's probably why I'm still going to partially recommend this one. Is like it was an all right read. Like it didn't like bog down with any kind of like looking at our grammar inquisition. It didn't bog us down with like too many like writing issues.
Yeah.
It just felt like a step backward. And hopefully the next story has a stronger payout for like what exactly is going on in Morefolk. So I look forward to it. Like hopefully I'm cautiously now optimistic about the next one. Where I was like super optimistic about the previous from after the previous one. Now I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel too, unfortunately.
Yeah, I hate it. Like I wanted to come in here loving the story, but it's like best I can do is a partial recommendation. And like if you're gonna read this story, read this like at the very least read it immediately after you read something awful. But yeah, that's my recommendation, partial. So, Mikey, these stands for evil. Have you been swayed, good demon? Oh, also, welcome back from Tangent Prison. I'm glad that
back off recording because of course we did that.
Yeah, I forgot to bring that up. But yeah, I'm glad I gotta say I'm glad the bail went through.
How was your stay there? Did they treat you well?
Yes. I'm not allowed to go into details.
Yeah.
Oh, of course, yeah, we understand. Yeah.
So yeah.
But yeah, sorry.
Anyway, so this story, well, like I said previously, it just comes off as the ravings of a madman, and there's no sort of supernatural side to this story, whereas the previous one it had that supernatural because we got some of it. So this story, because it lacked the supernatural and is more mundane, oh, there's a serial killer. I just didn't get that creep factor for this one, so I'm still not recommending it.
Okay, that's fair. Also, I'm just now again that Congress thing is like more and more prevalent because like not a lot was said. Like there's no actual tangible evidence aside from under oath statements. And this story is there's not a lot of new tangible information aside from statements.
It's amazing how connected things are this year.
Yep. But Gamer, your verdict.
Yeah. So this one, it's like I said before, I really, really liked the first one. It was great. I was super excited going into this one. But this one, it's like, by the time I got to it, the end of it, I'm like, magic's gone, man. It's like, there's so much flair, drama, and like needless mic drops throughout this whole thing that it takes me completely out of the story, to be honest.
Yeah, he went full blown like conspiracy nut, like in this way, and like megalomaniac, like villain, like almost level of like conspiracy nut.
Yeah, you never go full nut, but like now, hear me out. Okay, the flowery descriptors and the attitude are all done really well, but to me, it's done a bit too much. Is the problem because like The problem for me is thinking about this in a real world setting. It feels dishonest, oddly enough, considering he's a truthsayer. Because it's so overdone that it makes me not want to listen to him anymore because he's become that crazy guy at this point in the tinfoil hat.
Like the first one, he was like, I'm willing to listen to his to his argument. This one, he's hopped up on a soapbox with the tinfoil hat and is like, and just yelling into the street.
Yeah, pretty much. But maybe standing on top of a bus. Like he's really high up.
Yeah. Or no, it's several soapboxes stacked up on each other. It's a soapbox pyramid.
Do a soapbox challenge.
Yeah, God. It's a pyramid scheme of soapboxes.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But yeah, the first installment was a call to action that felt real.
Yeah.
Like even considering it's talking about a living corpse that's killing pregnant women, it still felt real. In this one, it feels like Jay went to theater school, as I said, in the meantime, and like decided to quote unquote continue warning the masses by assaulting us with thousands of words of, sorry to say, fluff that either says what we already know or what we don't need to know, simply so he can stand on his soapbox and entertain the crowd for as long as he can.
Yeah.
And then like we get to the ending and he's like, he's here to warn us, sure, yet he said that child abductions are tied to a monster now, but he didn't say anything about them. The whole story is telling us what we already know. All the murders are tied to the creature.
Yeah.
This should have been a light follow-up to the previous, and the rest should have been all new information.
Yeah.
Instead of Jay using the new info with child abductions as a damn plug for people to tune in next time for.
Yeah.
Like those are real children missing and real grieving families.
Real
that
people
Jay is using as a hook for real people of this town to be quote unquote excited for his next story.
In this fictitious setting, but yes, that's
what I'm trying to say. In
this
this sort of story, I'm trying to like stay involved and as immersed as possible.
Yeah.
And if this happened in the real world, and this guy's saying this is how I would feel. Like he's dragging it out for no reason. He knows the information, unless he has a damn good reason of waiting. Like, why can't he tell us in this whole story about the child abductions? Like, why does he have to wait? He knows everything.
Yeah.
Like what you said, Cultist, that you're suggesting that you should read this immediately after reading the first one. Honestly, I feel like you should skip this one entirely because it doesn't do anything. The next one sounds like it's going to drop a lot of new information. That's good. But I don't think reading anything from this will have any detrimental effect from reading the next one. Like, you're not going to miss anything because nothing was said here.
Yeah.
Which, again, is unfortunate to say because, as I said before, the descriptors and the attitude and, like, the snarky comments to the cops and the articles, it's all written really well. But it's all unnecessary, unfortunately.
I know. It's like, it's that weird fine line between, like, what is entertaining as a reader and what, and what, how realistic this would play out for the immersion angle. Like, it's immersion versus entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It is often a fine line to like try and like balance between immersion of the realism of your setting up and the entertainment for the reader.
Yeah. And granted, like if this was supposed to be full 100% immersion, it would be on it'd be Read at No Sleep, right?
Yeah.
Because that's its whole deal.
Also, yeah, again, like this, I think this could still be on Reddit No Sleep if it was like if this was part 2 of something. There's something awful going on in Morefolk. Like I would believe that. Mm-hmm. Actually, honestly, that's what I think would make this even better. If yes, this was actually something awful is happening in Morefolk. The first story was part 1, and then he released a part 2 for there's something awful, or for something awful is happening in Morefolk. And that part 2 was this story, because that's kind of what this feels like. It feels like the next installment in one of those Reddit No Sleep stories.
I don't know. Most of the time when we read second stories of those, there's still something new happening. But still standing by that nothing new happened here.
I don't disagree with you on that. It's just like, but I feel like that if you're gonna read it as it is, like that's a format to go with.
Yeah. But what I would suggest, just my own personal opinion, so it doesn't really matter one way or another, but the way that I would enjoy this better is if the articles from this, with the little snarky comments in between them, just the small bits, are put into the first story.
Yeah.
And then everything else, like the mention of the kid being taken, that's in the next one.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I could buy that.
But yeah. That's about it. So I still don't recommend it.
Mhm.
Personally, I would read 1 and 3 immediately after, unless I haven't read 3 yet. So maybe in 3 there's something that connects to here completely directly that this is important and necessary. Then at that point, I may change my recommendation of this to a partial, perhaps, but we shall see.
Okay. So then I guess we have a partial recommendation, and then sadly two non-recommendations. And it's like not because the story was bad; it's just because it doesn't give us anything new that we didn't already know from the previous story.
Yeah,
sort of like a recap, if at best. But that is how it is. Hopefully, the Morefolk broadcast incident will perhaps change our mind of the whole of the whole series as a whole, or the whole series as a whole, really change our minds on the whole series, or at least like make
see what's going to be.
Yeah, I really want to know like what exact and who knows if that's even the end of the series. Like that's just the third installment.
Yeah.
So like we'll see what big revelation Jay has been holding off on from this story. Like maybe we even know a little bit more about Dennis Bauer and like the missing kid report like in the next one. And like so yeah, I guess we'll just have to see till next week. But I think that'll do it for this week's episode. So if you like what you heard, or if you didn't, leave us a comment in the comment section below where this gets posted, whether it be on Podbean, Facebook, YouTube, or Tumblr. We're all on Twitter. Mikey is at the E stands for evil. The Gamer in Yellow is at the Gamer in Yellow, but without that W at the end, because his name is very long.
Yeah.
And I'm at Review Cultist. If you'd like to send us emails, you can go to aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's ALDENTERIGAMORTIS@gmail.com. Where you can also leave us suggestions for other creepypastas, SCPs, spooky things. You creep it, we'll peep it. Yeah. And if you'd like to help support our show financially, you can go to Patreon. Select the backer tier you'd like to support us at. We have $2 and $5 tiers with special episodes, early access, extra content. For our patrons that are helping support the show, thank you immensely. You're helping keep those hosting bills at bay. And as always, we very much appreciate that. And to our listeners and the authors of these stories, thank you immensely. Because without your listenership, it'd be like screaming into the void. And without your authorship, without these stories that you create and post online and share for people to enjoy and get spooked by, we really wouldn't have much of a show because we have nothing to talk about. Like I'm genuinely excited to do these stories or to read these stories and to take them out. And like this one, like the Morefolk stuff, I was from the first one, I was like, yes, more like a sequel. Yeah, more Morefolk. Oh man, that I kind of feel like that should be like
this. I'm still in that that headspace of I still want to see the next one. Like this has not deterred me.
Yeah, this hasn't
because it didn't jive with me,
Yeah, it's just it leaves like I'm still hopeful for the next one, and I still want to read the next one. So like, yeah, I haven't been we haven't been deterred yet. So, but yeah, so thank you for creating these stories and posting them online. Until next time, I have been your host, Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey, the stands for evil,
and I'm the Gamer in Yellow,
and this has been Al Dente Rigamortis. Sleep well.